might need a quick pause because Mike is not recording.
Mike is not recording. Okay.
Do we have a solution to Mike not being able to record? turn VOD on in settings so we can just take the VOD. Okay, I'm sorry. Our recorder, who shall not be named, is not currently recording. So we're going to take a short break until our recorder is back on. Can we trust Nyfot?
We can trust Nyfot.
Can you turn on out just in case or not?
Why are you doing this, bro?
What do you mean? I'm not.
This.
Come on.
Where's the settings on this shit?
Yo, we did call it scuffed, right? It's predictive, you know?
Stop.
Though I actually think Nyfot's recording is probably fine. I think it's good to try to turn it off just in case.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think as soon as we said that, a bunch of people started recording anyway, so...
I'm sure someone will handle it, yeah. But...
Okay,
see
are we
if
good?
we can get the bots on.
We get to take it.
Oh, I'm getting primes, bro. I'm getting money.
Someone said,
Spider
why you
Sorry
all
asks, why
so
you all
far?
talk so fast? Well, I'm from New York, so it'd be like that, you know?
I'm from Russia.
Well,
No, you're
maybe
not.
Yo, should we just forcefully drag Skilly in here? While we figure this out?
No.
I don't think Skilly wants to come in here.
Mike
Nah,
doesn't
I
speak
doubt it.
Russian. Yes, I do.
Just because you play CSGO does not mean you speak Russian. Okay, our VOD's on? Are we good?
No, I don't know how to do that. I'm looking at the
Alright,
settings.
whatever. I'm going to trust that someone will record, so...
Okay.
Pretty scuffed. But Nyfot's got our back. I trust him.
Alright. Fine by me. Maybe he will record the 1424p. Fine. Alright. So yeah. I guess we can go next, because I already answered Q&A.
Oh, it's me already. Okay. So, lots of questions about tutorial and also just how new players will be able to get used to the mechanics that we'll be featuring in RotF. So, as a lot of people know before, we had the rune system, the skill tree system and everything, and a lot of people just did not know what to do with it. So, we're investing some time into getting a functioning tutorial going. So, it's going to explain all the stats that players have, what they'll actually be doing, or the function of those. We'll have a quick tutorial to go over how biomes are going to generate, and how gear's going to work, and everything like that. So you can practice against some enemies and learn what's going on before you actually jump into the game and have to go and find out what runes do yourself. We also, as we're starting off with 2 character slots for every account, we're going to be, after the tutorial, forcing the players to choose a second class so that they can focus on, well, they can understand how to use the vault as an item storage and max multiple characters at once to try and lessen the learning curve of permadeath. So those are our plans for tutorial. Next slide, Mike.
Nice.
Pog.
Yeah, so minimum client specs or minimum performance, all that stuff. So we don't have any minimum requirements scoped out yet. Especially because we're still working on stuff, so there's no telling you exactly how, you know, optimization will improve and stuff like that. What I will say is that my game runs on my MacBook Air at full frames, and my MacBook Air is like kind of giga shit. So I hope that gives some sort of like benchmark as to how client performance is. To answer the question from Blazing Rogue, it is a standalone client. It is a standalone game. It's built in Unity. And I think we're always looking for ways to optimize, but I've played it on a bunch of different machines again, including my giga shit MacBook Air, and it works well. So, full frames.
Nice.
Push next. So will I be allowed to dupe from Hyporos? So dupes are pretty much always going to be possible, right? Any new feature that you create or work on has a chance to create more duping exploits or vulnerabilities, right? We're always going to fix them, but people will probably find a chance to abuse them in the period between discovery and solution. So there is a technical solution available now, which is assigning a unique ID to each item on drop, right? And we have the tech for it, right? We have an item mod system that allows us to do that. But this like quote unquote solution can cause problems for legitimate players. Where like let's say for example you have two players that one of them manages to dupe an item through like a trading exploit, something like that, right? So then you have player A who is legitimate, has an item with the same ID as player B, who was cheating, right, or who were exploited. The server now needs to determine, okay, which item is legitimate, which one should stay, right? Which one didn't cheat, and the server's not going to be able to tell that. All they can see is that there's two items with the same ID, right? So the server's gonna have to take a wild guess and just eliminate one or both of the items, and there's a chance that totally screws over a legitimate player. We think that's generally a bad thing. So aspirationally, I'm going to say we want to just make sure that we fix any potential problems that could enable an item dupe exploit before they go to live. Realistically, we know that's not necessarily possible, so I think we'll definitely be monitoring it and trying to understand whether the item ID solution is necessary. But obviously, given how aggressively duping can affect in-game economy, we're going to be keeping a close eye on it. That's what I'll say.
Okay.
Go next.
Okay, so there was a lot of questions from Smitty. We didn't want to answer a lot of them, so I blacked them out. So this is going to look not very good. But basically, boss design and
Yo,
Quaximi.
hashtag scuffed. Let's go.
Yes, sir.
The most scuffed.
Oh,
So dungeons being soloable, this is an ideal goal for us to have, where you can run dungeons in both large groups and small groups and actually be able to enjoy the content. As that's what it's all about. You should be having fun while you're playing, and if it's just when you're soloing, you get overwhelmed, you can't do anything, and you have to leave. That's not good design. So what we've done is we've put more of the boss fight focus on unique bullet hell attacks and environment manipulation. So using the boss drum a lot during the fights to make sure everything is unique and also fun to run. In terms of dungeons, Biomes Lords plan to be in release. We're aiming for 18 for closed testing, and then 36 for full release. This is a lot of content to make. We do think we will be able to get it done, but those are our goals. In terms of dungeons that have multiple bosses, that is more about design than it is difficulty. So, for example, one of our new easy biomes, the Gelatinous Palace, has 4 bosses as the lord of the biome, but they're obviously easy because it's an easy biome. But then hard dungeons with only 1 boss, it's just equivalent to the difficulty. It doesn't really matter if it functions better with multiple bosses, then that's what we're going to go with. But it's more of a design choice based on the content itself rather than difficulty. I mean, that'll be
Very
all.
nice.
That's it.
I think so.
well, hello. So, are we gonna have different kinds of bugs and not just blue and white? And to answer the question, yes, we will. And although I can't tell you what they'll be, you just have to wait and find out. But as you can see on the screen right now, we also have been experimenting with some ways to make the loot drops feel a bit more exciting, a bit more flashy. And whether it is a cool pop-up animation like the primal bug on the left, or just an epic bug falling down out of the sky, we're still experimenting, of course, but it's gonna be cool, hopefully. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Next, yeah.
Okay, runes. These are questions along the lines of, will there be new ones? Are they going to be character bound? Are the legacy runes going to come over to the new game? Yeah, so there will be new runes, 100%. The details on those are still being developed internally because, we're working, I think, as patpot said, on 18 biome dungeon pairs for closed testing. So we have to prioritize things pretty carefully. The current plan is for runes to be bound per character. And the drops are meant to work sort of like old potion drops, where certain monsters are more likely to drop certain runes. So in the same way that you might have, spam killed Medusas to get speed pots, there will be certain monsters that tend to drop certain runes so you can grind for them. But yeah, for closed testing, the legacy runes are going to return more or less unchanged, just because we are trying to prioritize making sure that all the dungeon, biome, etc. content is done. For the re-release, the official open release, some of those runes will most likely stay, some of them will most likely not, and we'll of course be adding new ones, and that applies to the re-release and then probably afterwards as well, just for updates. But just for time constraints reasons, and also because I mean the old runes were for the most part fun to use, most of them will be staying for the closed testing session.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, this is an essay question. It's trimmed down because this guy wrote like a straight up like I don't know, it was a lot. So we've selected a few questions we'd answer here from his essay, and then I'm probably going to try to go back later and respond to the question, the full essay on the actual Reddit thread that we pulled these from. So the essay question that we, the piece of it that we pulled were, is there going to be a wiki, or how's that going to work, and how are third-party apps going to work? So let's talk about this. We definitely want a wiki. But we don't necessarily have the resources to maintain that wiki in-house, right? So we'll provide resources instead to players that want to maintain a wiki, right? To wiki maintainers. For example, through this API, which we'll segue into the second part of the question pretty soon, and just through other resources, right? So I think in the past the wiki was run, I actually forget who it was run by, but it was player run in the past and it worked out pretty well, but we didn't do a good enough job of providing them with the resources they needed to actually run the game. They were like scraping the image assets and stuff from the client, and it shouldn't really be that complicated to run, right? We should be helping them do that. So related is that third-party sites and apps are actually encouraged a lot. Before there was the web skill tree, we'd love to see like an op.gg like site for League, but instead for RotF. All of which will be much more possible with the new API stuff and the documentation it's gonna give. So this might, this part of the answer might not necessarily be helpful to everyone directly, but indirectly, we know there are people out there who want to develop sites and stuff for, the game. For example, the op.gg thing on the web skill tree. And given how many people used the web skill tree before, I think it's safe to say that this will indirectly help out a lot of people too. So should be cool.
Yep.
Okay, so there was a lot of, as everyone who played Legacy or RotF know, event watching is how we described it, where you'd either just sit in Nexus or you'd wait for a ping from the tracker bot telling you that your event has spawned and you can go and get the loot you're farming for. This minimizes on playtime and generally enjoyability of the game, so we're trying to think of ways to minimize this when we come back with the re-release. So we think the new biome system does help counteract this a bit, but there's still going to be biases towards what you want to farm. We're planning things like the character progression things, like the getting runes, the skill tree we're going to touch on later, just spreading that around so people will want to be running as much content as possible. Actually making sure that it's fun to run, so there's no reason for you to skip out on it. Making sure it's doable in small groups, just actually refining the content itself so it's better for people to run, which also links into the second one. We'll also be putting pages to prevent leeching or rushing, so that comes down a lot to just dungeon design. So for boss rooms, if you're able to leave the boss room in the middle of a boss fight, it doesn't feel like a boss fight. Like when you're doing a necropolis and you can just leave the room and come back and get loot, that doesn't feel like you're not present there. It's very difficult. So we're trying to minimize on that, maybe with just closed off boss rooms, something like that, so players actually have to dodge and focus on the bullet hell rather than just leaving. So that's what we've been looking to doing moving forward.
Nice. With regards to the item storage stuff, so the plan right now for the vault is more or less to be similar to how it worked in Legacy RotF. That said, when you compare like the vault to just the blanket, phrase that you see in this question of item storage, there were some differences in Legacy RotF, right? So in Legacy RotF, you could access the vault to access your skill tree, right? The Rune Master, although the Rune Master was also in the Nexus, the Rune Master wasn't your vault. Also your potion storage, and then most importantly, the spaceship, right? All of that stuff was in the vault. And the main reason for that was that it was a place where you were sort of in your own like instance world, whatever, right? So although the main purpose of the vault is, I don't think, going to change in terms of item storage, I think we will be looking to expand in some ways on how the vault acts as your personal, account's home. but I don't think there's anything concrete to share about it just yet. As for how we will prevent people from abusing in-game cheats, duping, etc., we talked about duping a bit earlier, but as for a general anti-cheat, this is another foundational design thing where I spent a lot of time writing server-sided anti-cheat for most potential core gameplay exploits. So stuff like ignoring projectiles, God mode, speed hacking, or clipping through walls or clipping into walls, no clip, etc. Ignoring tile damage, the list goes on. All of that stuff has server-sided patches and server-sided enforcement, right? So ideally, it shouldn't be exploitable. There are some ways that you can always mess with things, right? Like even if you had perfect anti-cheat, someone could write a script that just visually looks at the screen and checks if your HP bar is below a certain threshold and then presses the R button for you, right? There's only so much you can do about it. But in terms of all of the core gameplay features that can be tracked, they're all being tracked. So most cheating that has any significant impact should be impossible. Yeah. Can go next. Yeah, so item upgrades, enchantments, mods, etc. So the actual item system in the game that I've written leaves room for item modification as on a per item basis, right? So as of right now, all items that drop have a chance to have added stats, effects, etc. Right? So if you find just a random staff or something, there's a chance that it has extra damage or less damage, or increased shot speed, etc. Right? This is a very small chance because this is OP as heck, but there's a very small % chance that it drops with an extra projectile, right? So you can just have a really OP version of the item. And it's randomized and should be pretty cool. You can get different, in addition to having different rolls to what gets dropped, you get different rolls as to exactly how good or bad the item is, or the version of the item is. So piggybacking off of that, enchantment will use this same item system, this same item data structure that allows us to customize instances of an item, right? We don't have, I think, a lot more to say outside of that, because I don't think we have all the details hammered out ourselves. I think we've shown some of the capabilities of the item system in a few blog posts on ace.gg. But as for the actual enchantment system, as in what resources it costs to enchant or what the maximum enchantment is, etc., I don't think we have it hammered out just yet, but know that it is happening. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, and this is another one of Schmidt's ones. So linked on to enchantments and things, they obviously have the legendary and the primal effects that we saw before. Legendary effects, the current plans are to be, as well as the mods, to be randomized on item. So legendary effects will not be specific for an item. You'll be able to have any legendary with any legendary effect. So a bit more random, adds for a bit more specification. We think it's going to be good. We'll have to test it in close testing and see how it goes. So ideally, we do want randomized legendary effects. Primal effects, we thought were far too specific to do this sort of thing, with. So primal effects will still be specific to their items, and they will not be randomized. So you'll only be able to get the one primal effect for each item.
Nice.
And that'll be all.
Yep.
All right, so grind, loot changes, dungeon generation, epic mobs, which is a kind of long list, but they're all sort of related. So let's do this. The grind is going to become pretty comparable to Legacy RotF in terms of loot grind. I think we mostly liked the actual loot progression in Legacy RotF, so should be more or less the same. That said, there are a few changes to the loot system that should help the frustrations with the threshold system. Right, so each class now has a threshold boost. We're still working out the exact numbers, but that threshold boost means that some classes will have a smaller percent or soulbound percent requirement to qualify for a role. So that'll I think help. Oh.
Sorry.
Like
Cable set me off.
You're good. Yeah. The plan is probably that lower DPS classes like Priest will have a higher percent threshold boost, so they don't have to deal as much soulbound. So that'll be nice. And then outside of that, dungeon generation. The question was from Scully/Gizmo, and the question was, will there ever be variants of varying dungeons? I'm not 100% that I understood this question correctly, but assuming I did, I think it's asking about dungeon generation, like randomized dungeons. It's planned 100%. It's not going to be the case for every dungeon, right? We will have some, larger dungeons that don't do this, but there will always be some corridor/room style dungeons that we would like to randomize and generate procedurally. But it's not on the closed testing roadmap. The other question that they asked was about elite mobs. I think by that they meant epic mobs. We think they're fun, but we're still scoping out the details because it's hard to get that system right. And I think that pretty much covers everything. Can you go next?
This next one's exciting.
It is correct. Yeah. Look at all those question marks after all. To answer the question, yes, we do have plans for the fallen boss or bosses. They probably won't make an official appearance until the release. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully, yeah.
Yep.
These sprites have nothing to do with the fallen boss. These are meme sprites.
Yeah,
I don't like this sprite. This thing's evil. This thing's cursed.
We put this in here to
I
torment
just want
Mini
away
because
from
he
this
hates
guy.
it.
He's scary.
I hate this sprite. There's an emote for it on Discord too. It's evil. Okay, anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so next is with the original buffs, can we expect new ones? So yes, we can expect new buffs. We've got the same basic buffs as we had before, but for specific dungeons, certain enemies, there'll be new status effects built in for those. You can see here in the screenshot we have our new icon for the speedy buff, made by Mr. Folks. Did a very good job of those. But yeah, we do have some new ones planned, and they will be added on some of the dungeons you'll be able to see on closed testing as well. So I look forward for that. That'll be
nice. Okay, this is a big question because it's kind of important, or the realm system is going to feel bad. The question is, how are the biome generations going right now? I've been wondering how the biomes will work when changing areas, how they'll blend together, stuff like that. We have a lot of pending changes to the biome generation. A lot. I'll just go through the list more or less, and then we'll also talk about sort of like goals. The first thing that's going to change is we're just going to improve enemy placement and selection. The way it worked before in the preview video that you guys saw was sort of hacked together just to make sure, we had something to play, right? Just to make sure that while we were building the dungeons, we could test something, right? And while we were building the biomes, we could test something. It was completely random. We literally just said, go through the list of positions in the world and roll a die and see if we want to spawn something. That's basically it. I just finished writing last night, actually, the improved system, which includes stuff like, certain monsters are more likely to spawn in certain areas or over certain tiles, stuff like that. So that's going to help within each biome. And then we're also going to have proper decoration and static object generation. So in the pictures you see on screen, there's a few things happening. So the two circled areas show tile decals and static objects, which literally didn't generate before in the previous video, which is just kind of terrible. So in the bottom right, you see some tile decals, and in the top right, you have static objects. They don't do anything, but they're kind of required flavor to not look like garbage. So I just finished writing that last night too, actually. We're also looking to improve tile blending within the biome. So in the picture on the left, you can see the purple tiles and the brown tiles, and it just sort of looks like a square. Yeah. Tile blending is the system that we use to, literally blend, right? To smooth out the transition between two completely disparate tiles, right? So you can see over here we have these cool leafy effect, right? In between the purple and the brown tiles on the right. That's within the biome. As for changing from one biome to another, the transitions are still work in progress, and we're still scoping out solutions. Some things that we've thrown out there are maybe having fog, where the main biome that you're in is I don't want to say highlighted, but is fully in focus, and then the other biomes that you can't see or aren't necessarily in yet are sort of foggy or diminished in brightness, etc. Other solutions maybe lining the edge of each biome with static objects that relate to their biome, stuff like that. We're still scoping out solutions because we think that the transition between each biome right now is a bit jarring. But we don't have anything decided on yet. And then the last thing that we're talking about doing is doing sort of miniature set pieces within the biome in addition to the lore that spawns, right? So some people know that, for example, Enter the Gungeon, which I absolutely love, although it has procedural dungeon generation, the actual rooms that it generates are not procedural, meaning the actual contents of each room in each dungeon layout are predetermined. They build out the rooms first, and then where the rooms get placed, that's random. So what we're hoping to do is, although the biomes are, of course, procedurally generated, what we're hoping to do is have miniature boss fights, and not even really boss fights, just miniature encounters, right? That we can place throughout each biome, which will hopefully help each biome feel like a more cohesive unit, I think. So again, to summarize, we're improving enemy placement and selection. We're going to add decoration, static object generation. We're going to improve tile blending within the biome. We're going to improve blending from biome to another biome, and we're going to have miniature set pieces with mini fights.
Pog.
Okay, we did it.
Pog.
Okay, so on to progression barriers and stats. So it's another one of Schmitty's questions. A lot of these got in so far. Ideally, we do not want.
In fairness, right? The ones that have gotten in were asked by a lot of people, but it's easier if we just pull them all from like the earliest question that was asked.
Yeah.
So that's part of why we have like 10,000 Schmitty questions as well, for the record.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, no progression skips. Ideally, we have the different biomes set up with different difficulties. There'll be clearly defined barriers to entry before you can get into the harder content. So you won't be able to create a new character, go straight to an Acropolis, like the example gives here, and get top items. That's not going to be possible. You're going to have to go through the same experience as you will on every character to make sure they're at the same level as a hard tier, or as a character that can do hard tier content should be at. So you will have to be actually at the tier that you want to be at. In terms of stats and maxing, plan to have the same system, potions dropping from enemies. We don't plan to cap level at level 20, but stat gain will stop at level 20 as well. So if we get the next slide, please, Mike. So yeah, continuing on from leveling, we currently plan to, once you get past level 20, you'll start earning skill points. So these will be, sorry, oh, I'm joking. Okay, so you'll be able to earn skill points past level 20. These will obviously be used in the skill tree. There will be a cap on these, so there will be a max level. Yeah, the max level will just equal to the amount of skill tree nodes you're allowed to select. That's about it. It's just using a leveling to earn skill tree points, as Galaxies are currently not something we have planned, and we think that this is a better alternative. Still heavily work in progress on how we're going to actually do the skill tree, but we're working on it.
Right, so just to add on to that, the way that you get points right now is what patpot just described. We literally haven't finished programming any of that, so it's still up in the air. Yeah, but the loose plan, especially for closed testing, is just stop increasing it after level 20, but you can still get skill tree points, and you do that by leveling up after 20. So yep, you can go next, I think.
Well, let's see. Community content. Well, speaking of actually community-made content like custom dungeons or custom bosses, fights, whatever, we're not opposed to it, but it's unlikely that we'll ever add them in, unless it's really good, you know. We do have our plans, so we probably focus on those first before adding any community content, even considering it. But of course, we will consider, you know, feedback and possible suggestions to any content we have in game at the moment. You know, yeah, I fumbled that.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so dungeons as biome pairs and legacy content. So people are asking a lot of questions in the thread. How much old content will we see returning? So we do have a biome plan list at the moment. So we said before that we're going to have 18 biomes and dungeon pairs on closed testing. All of the easy biomes are completely new content that's not been in legacy RotF. So we have all of those have been designed recently and made with the new systems in mind. All of the medium biomes are reused legacy content, except we're going to be expanding on it and adding dungeons into them. For example, the God of Reptilians is going to be coming back with a dungeon. The Tomb of Decaying Death will also be seeing a return, we're going to be making a new lord for that. Otherwise, you'll just be chasing the Tombstone Carrier across the entire map. And then the set of 4 Tree Smasher, Shadow Scale, Riverborn, and Fire Breather will all be receiving new dungeons. So that's that. Scorched Plains will not be seeing a return, at least for now. In terms of hard dungeons, we have Twilight Necropolis coming back with some map changes, as I think a lot of people have requested. Chests will not be featured in these, because that's not a fair system. We do not want that. Icy Peaks will also be seeing a rework to what we actually want it to be. We will be working on the map and the bosses for it, so we get to a good point. Asgard at the moment.
Yo, what's that? Lava in an icy dungeon doesn't make sense.
Excuse me.
What?
Excuse me.
I
Yeah,
don't believe you. I disagree.
The
It
Night
makes perfect
Monarch.
sense, of course.
Night Monarch is lore.
Okay,
Okay,
I see.
so-
The Night Monarch, which is full of orange pixels. Yeah, I agree.
Silence. Miniguy.
Okay, so
I will silence myself. Continue.
okay, yeah. So and we're also going to be seeing Asgard coming back as a hard dungeon. We will possibly do tweaks for this. Nothing planned at the moment. And then we'll be seeing 3 new dungeon and biome pairs for hard. The first one is going to be the Gate to the Underworld, which links into the 3rd and 4th question, saying, are we going to have any longer raid-like dungeons? Yes, this is currently planned to be one of them. And this is also going to be based on Egyptian mythology. So to get to the Underworld, you will be entering into the Underworld and fighting against different Egyptian gods. I'm currently working on planning this and getting the boss fights all good. So it's going to be a longer dungeon. And the last 2 have less plans for them, but we have the Soul Harvest and the Dark Depths, which no further comments.
I'm probably just brain off, but did you list all the easy biomes dungeons?
Oh yeah, so we've been slowly showing the easy biomes and dungeons. If you catch our designers often do streams, but so far we have the Gelatinous Palace, the Fungal Abode, the Living Forest, Crystal Grove, the Magician's Hideout, and the Caramel Carnival. These are our 6 new biomes and dungeon pairs we'll be bringing in for easy content.
We're going to ride the Dupe boat.
Not yet.
Okay, no spoilers. My bad.
I think that's everything for this slide.
I hit it all. You go next.
Next slide.
Okay, juice time. Yeah. New client capabilities. The question is asking, will there be new features that you'll be able to support with the power of the new engine, which is of course Unity, that we wanted to have in the old game but couldn't just from technical limitations? Yes, there are many things. Let's talk about it. The most obvious thing is performance power. That's straight up just the fact that my Mac used to get a solid 1 FPS in the old client, and now it gets 2. No, it gets full frames, right? I get 60 FPS minimum, and if I uncap it, I get more, right? That's the most obvious thing. In addition to that, we also get access to more platforms. So running a game in Adobe Flash gains, well, it used to have a platform advantage in one place only, and that was publishing to the web, right? It no longer has that platform advantage because every major web browser has discontinued Flash. Meanwhile, Unity has an advantage in pretty much every other platform, right? It can publish to Mac, publish to PC, publish to consoles, mobile devices, whatever, right? It works pretty much everywhere. So that is a major advantage if we ever wanted to explore that. And thanks to the fact that the client actually performs very well, we could actually look into putting it onto an iPad or whatever, right? So it could be cool. And then also there's the benefit of the fact that because this is our game in our Unity engine, or through the Unity engine written by us, it's using only our code, right? We still use some open source stuff, obviously, like most games, but there's, I guess the better way of putting it is that this has forced and enabled us to use exclusively our assets and to really transform this from a spin-off of a game that we like to an actual standalone game. But in addition to all of that, I guess we can push the next slide. We can show some additional juice. So because we're in the Unity engine now, we have a lot more access to 3D, which I guess I'll let Quax explain because he's the main modeler and artist behind this stuff. So go ahead.
Yeah, 3D, cool stuff. Thanks.
Yeah, so I guess never mind. I guess I'll add on to it. we get a lot of access to just 3D assets in general through the Unity engine, and we can add a lot more dynamic stuff. So, like for example, you can have a portal thing where you literally walk in like to a 3D hovering thing. We get access to, I guess, shader code, which is a major benefit. The best way to explain this is that the old Flash client basically didn't use very much of your graphics card power at all. You could turn on hardware acceleration, right? Most of you guys know this, but almost the entire game was still CPU bound. So like you just went wasting a lot of the processing power of modern computers, right? Thanks to Unity, right, and switching engines to an actual modern game engine, we gained the ability to use proper shader code, have cool visual effects, do full 3D objects, glows, that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool. This is like a small like clip from a fungal abode area, but there's a lot more 3D stuff that will be used. So. Can you go next? One other thing we got going is like proper spawn animations, death animations, that kind of thing. So this is the Lord of the Gelatinous Palace on the right that you see here. Sort of combusting and then transforming into the portal to the dungeon. So it's a lot of visual flair, right? A lot of just like juice, honestly, as opposed to like raw gameplay. But I think the things go hand in hand, and we get a lot of juice power with the engine switch. So it's pretty cool.
Juice. Pog.
Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, general random questions, yeah? Mike, this is all you.
No.
Mike, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream? This is very important.
I don't eat ice cream, bro. I don't like it.
Nice.
You said chocolate.
Okay,
Yesterday.
you lied. Yeah, when we did the dry run.
Hey,
Okay.
listen, chocolate ice cream is pretty fucking good. I can't lie.
Okay. But you just lied a second ago. No, you said you didn't like ice cream.
Shut up.
Okay.
How about you answer the other question, huh?
No, what do you mean? The other question was for you too. Of all the devs, who's the best fighter? I mean, come on. You answered that last time too. Come on.
Yeah, I'd win. I'd smoke everyone.
This is untrue. This is not agreed upon point.
Now, the next live stream, of course, we will be determining this for sure. So, no, I'm kidding.
But how are we gonna determine that, huh?
Just fly everyone in. What do you mean? It's fine.
Okay. Okay.
No, I don't. It's fine. I will lose by default. So you three can duke it out. It's okay. Favorite classes, I guess, from Legacy. Mike's a trickster, one trick. I don't know.
Yeah.
I play priest only because I like to. I cannot play the game. Oop! Someone just popped in here.
Someone
Okay,
joined the
I'm gone.
Discord, bro. Pog.
Yeah, I'm a priest one trick because I like to AFK and press spacebar. I don't know. Here's an actual question. Why did you guys start working on RotF? Was it a pet project, or did you guys plan on getting as big as it did? I think the best way to describe like how the game sort of progressed versus how we thought it would progress is sort of like I think Dota like started as like a Warcraft 2 mod, and League started from Dota or Dota developers, right? I think the best way to describe it is that we ran a Evernote, right? We ran a fan project from the Mad God, which we had a lot of fun with because the game that we liked a lot, we had some different ideas, or we just had ideas as to some directions it could go, right? Some new ideas, some new content. And we're hoping that the game would go in that direction. It didn't. So we kept pushing, in the direction we wanted it to go. And eventually we sort of realized that actually we have the resources, abilities, and knowledge, and also community to take this from a mod of a popular game into a standalone game. So the transition from Warcraft 2 to Dota, right? Or Dota to League, right? So, we started off as a mod and learned a lot from running that, and now we're a standalone game. I don't think we had any plans for this to happen. But I think I personally wouldn't have had it any other way. It's pretty cool.
Damn, it's pretty cool. I agree.
I'd say it's pretty cool.
Let's go next.
I guess the last one here is.
We're not gonna run. We're not gonna answer that one.
Okay. What are we doing after the game comes out? We are taking the money and running.
Yep.
Next. Kappa. No. So the actual post-release plans. So I think it's fair to divide this up into two different sections, right? Because there are two different major release milestones we have to talk about, and those are immediately after closed testing, and then immediately after the full open release of the game. Right. I'm going to talk a bit about the closed testing thing, and then I'll have patpot talk about the full release postmortem. So immediately after closed testing, or I guess immediately after the release of closed testing, our major focus is going to be monitoring stability. Right. The initial number of people that have access to the game is going to be really, really small. And we're just going to make sure that the game works properly. There's no perma crashing, no frame rate issues, no cheats, no dupes, etc. Right. That's the first thing. We're not going to worry too much about individual content other than make sure it doesn't break immediately afterwards. And then once we've made sure that the game is like stable, that's when we'll start siphoning more players in with more keys, right? And starting doing the key quest system, stuff like that, right? And then once we have a sizable player base in there that we know, or such that we know the server is completely stable and can handle a large number of players, that's when we'll start doing actual proper QA testing, right? Which means making sure that actual fights are balanced, the game's fair, the items aren't unbalanced, stuff like that. And then once we've gotten all of that done, that's when we'll look to transition from the closed testing period into a full release. At which point, well, I'll let patpot take it.
Okay, so after full release, we do intend to keep working on new actual in-game content as well. So biomes, lords, and also expanding on world bosses. I don't know if we said anywhere, but we're planning to have 10 world bosses just as a general standard to have a bit of variety. So you close the realm and you won't fight the same world boss every time because that'd be boring. So we're gonna try to get as many unique world bosses as we can. So content's gonna keep releasing. We do also plan to expand upon other features and different systems, so things like RPE modes, ladders, and everything. Whatever we can get working that we think players will enjoy. Basically, we don't have a solid roadmap for after release just yet. After closed testing, we got a few more solid plans, but we don't exactly know what we're going to do. We're going to work on whatever we feel is most important.
I think loosely, structurally, the plan is to follow a sort of PoE Path of Exile like content release structure. But beyond that, I don't think we could say much else for sure. I think go next. I think we are good.
Look what I made the chat do. A fuck.
What is this?
Why is everyone spamming exclamation point join?
Nyfot typed it and I typed it too.
This is your fault.
Okay,
Cool,
you can handle the collateral from this. That's fine. People think they're actually joining a raffle.
Yeah, there's no raffle. Don't type join. Come on. Nyfot, why'd you do me like this?
Yo, the viewer drop is going to drop instantly. Will there be new classes? And I guess this also relates to the alternate advancement system skill tree stuff. So I'll talk about that, and then I guess I'll talk about small paths. So new classes, yes, but the system's going to be a bit different. We've talked about it a bit before, but the loose plans for classes is basically that when you first create your character, you choose from one of 3 or one of 4 like root classes, and those are going to be like mage, archer, knight, something along those lines, right? And then from there, as you level up, we've said earlier in the presentation that you gain points to use in your skill tree, but the plan at the moment is actually to have 2 separate skill trees. One of those being the normal stat-based skill tree that you've seen before, and then the second one being a class-based skill tree. And the idea is that you use this class skill tree to upgrade parts of your class and eventually to subclass. So things like upgrading your basic ability and your spacebar, right? That'll all be in the class skills tree. Gaining special effects when you use your spacebar, stuff like that. And then eventually, once you've earned enough points, you can subclass. So perhaps Mage will subclass into Necromancer and gain unique effects and abilities based on that, right? That's the loose plan for it right now. It's kind of, I would say, a lot like the alternate advanced system from EverQuest 2. Not that anyone really knows what that game is at this point. But in EverQuest 2, you can basically allocate how your XP points will translate into a skill tree, where you have just like this 2 different skill trees. one of them based on your race and one of them based on other things. And that's more or less what we want to do here. I think we're still figuring out whether we want to do it exactly like EverQuest 2. In EverQuest, you could actually choose how much of your EXP, like you can allocate, like what percentage goes to what. So you can say, oh, I don't care at all about my class skill tree. I only want to go for the regular stats, and you can choose. I don't know if we're gonna do something exactly like that because right now it's just gain a point when you level up. We're still scoping out the exact details, but I think something along those lines is what we're aiming to do. Keep in mind that most of the stuff we've talked about, we've already written a lot of code and planning for. This is much more loose. We have not really written anything to support this yet, but that is aspirationally the plan. Swap outs, patpot.
Swap out. So we like swap outs. We are definitely a fan of trying to min-max, best items for best situations. A lot of this before has just been armor and ring swap outs, maybe occasionally weapons if you want to based on range. We intend to work as closely as we can with the class skill tree to try and get abilities that also functioning swap outs and everything. So there'll be a lot of farming to do. Basically, there's going to be unique item drops from every boss we add. There's new items, never before seen items. There'll be a lot of customization for your classes and characters, and items is going to be the same. So we're going to have. Sorry, I got distracted. So we're going to have a lot of swap outs basically. Ideally, we're a big fan of swap outs.
Squirrel.
There was a squirrel. So yeah, swap outs. Yes, big fan. We're going to do it.
Okay.
Good.
And also, people spamming / feet in chat, you need to stop. And reconsider a lot of your life choices.
Probably just
I think you know what you've done, right? Because you know what the chat is going to be filled with now. Yeah, here we go. It's your fault. You did this.
See, I'm seeing raffle, waffle.
No, you're not. You're not looking, dude. You're not looking.
Also Elvin, dude.
Problem was I was looking, which is why I got distracted.
I see.
Okay.
You're saying squirrel in chat. I understand. Okay, so this question is just RotF or Legacy RotF, right? Versus RotF 2 or new RotF. I think touching back on what we talked about earlier, where we're comparing the idea of a modified version of a big game to a spin-off, completely new, standalone, spiritual successor type thing, right? I think the direction that we were trying to push Legacy RotF when compared to the base game was towards customization and like depth of like builds, depth of character design, basically, right? Where you can build out your character how you want, you can find the most optimal setup, right? I think that is still the core focus of new RotF, sort of Path of Exile, like I would say. So I think that is the most obvious like feature that we liked, that we or design goal that we liked, that's going to translate over 1-to-1 because it is I think our like main design goal. The rune system is going to also be similar, where you choose a rune that complements your playstyle and then you build out a skill tree accordingly. So I think that's the biggest thing that will translate over 1-to-1 in terms of like design goals. A lot of other stuff is going to change. Like, I mean, Papa talked about it a lot earlier, but the dungeon design is going to be like, I think just across the board better. I think we've learned a lot from running Legacy RotF and from also just straight up playing more games and just understanding more. So I would say that we all expect most things to be just an improvement. And the other question here is the second bullet point. While we've been in the dark, I wonder how much has been content development, how much has been client work. Can we expect the game we know plus a nice client, or such new content, or a mix of the two? I think based on the stuff you've seen so far, you can tell that a lot of work has been going into new content. But if you look at everything's going to be new content more or less, right? I mean, we're bringing over some of the legacy stuff, right? We talked about Twilight Necropolis, but pretty much everything is going to be in some way new. In terms of development priorities, I think the question asks, are we working on client or content? And I think there's a missing field there, which is the server. The server that we were running before was much like the client, a modification of a popular game, right? So we can't use any of that, and we probably don't want to because we need to improve it anyway. We need to improve stability. So I would say that the first maybe even 10 months of development, at least on my side of things, was almost exclusively client server work to make sure that everything performs correctly and is stable and is structurally sound, right? And then after those 10 months were up, I would say that it's mostly been building out features that support the content that we're making. So one thing that's helpful is that we've been able to have a sort of development split because we all have, I would say, slightly different specialized skill sets, right? So, patpot was first working on RotF, just working on the Necropolis dungeon, right? Just basically scripting out almost all the behaviors, maybe all the behaviors, right? So we have him working on behaviors for the new stuff, right? We have Quax, who has been doing design stuff, forever. So he's working on all the concepts, art and stuff, and you'll see more of that later, right? But we're able to sort of do this stuff asynchronously, and we'll talk more about the content creation pipeline in a bit. But I work on server backend client stuff that make sure everything works. So I would say that you should not expect a Unity port of Legacy RotF for a lot of reasons, including just the fact that it's a different game. That's what I would say.
Next.
I think you go next. Yeah, so this is the content creation pipeline that we just talked about, or that I just talked about a second ago. We just thought we'd show it to you so you understand exactly what goes into basically every single dungeon biome pair that we're working on, right? Keeping in mind that we want to have 18 of these on release, right? 6 of each difficulty, easy, medium, and hard. I think when we first ran through this, patpot pointed out that there's sort of a task 0 here that you can't really see, which is just the conception phase, right? Where we have some idea, right? Just a phrase or something that inspires, just an idea about a boss or a lord or something, right? And then from there, once we've decided as a team, just through discussion about what we might want to add as a dungeon biome pair, that gets converted into a card like this, where you task things out. That's step 1, right? That way we can easily just keep track of progress. Step 2 then is concept art. This is usually a Quax thing. So, well, actually, thus far it's only been a Quax thing. He does a bunch of concept explorations where he'll first scope out the entire environment and put maybe 12 or so different iterations of how it could look. We discuss them as a team. We decide on one that we like, and then he starts working on Lord and static object, etc. possible designs. And then once we've felt pretty good about how those should look, he assembles everything into a doc with full guidelines as to exactly what sprites we'll need for the dungeon and biome to work properly, and that gets sent off to the spriters. So that would be either Bloodquin or Folks or OE or whatever, and they work on that. What's cool is that sort of asynchronously, even though we don't have the sprites in at that point, patpot and also Mike can work on behaviors using placeholder objects in the meantime, right? So that's sort of a step 3, step 4 mix, right? They both sort of happen at the same time. Can't really show a screenshot for that because we're not about to leak code, but that sort of happening at the same time. Once all that's done, we assemble everything in the map editor, which we built. You can see a sort of half screenshot of it on the bottom left. And then once all that's done, we assemble everything into the maps, and we load the behaviors in game, and you can actually play it. And that's pretty much the pipeline. So I guess it's kind of a lot, but I think that it leads to really fleshed out dungeons and biomes and good content. Patpot also points out last time that we are trimming down on some of the concept art stuff, just especially for the closed testing period, because it's sort of a bottleneck in some cases. But this is still more or less the content pipeline that we follow. Yeah.
Shout out to Skilly for making the map editor.
Yeah, true. Guild battles. Patpot, you want it?
Yeah, sure. So, as we saw before, as well as officially ran guild competitions, there was some competitions between different guilds. There was always debates about top guilds. There's probably a list of people out here who know exactly who the top guilds are. People will recognize just for their guilds, and we do want to emphasize guilds as much as we can efficiently. So here the suggestions are first dungeon clears, most rare for the month, most families character deaths. These sort of things are all valid ideas. We want sort of just some way to incentivize guild. So the fame boost on death has been removed, as well as the permanent loot boost, and been substituted with a purchasable guild loot boost, which you can have temporarily. So you can use guild fame for that. There will also be other uses for guild fame that I cannot go into at the moment. Just spoiler.
I'll go into those. I'm gonna point some of them out.
Oh no, fine.
Well, just because I've talked about it, and I'm gonna say what I keep saying.
Oh, I thought we weren't talking about it.
Well, we're not talking about everything, but
okay,
like,
you go over.
A year and a half, maybe probably 2 years ago by now, right? I said that guild halls should be hubs where like friends should actually be able to go, and it's not just like a place to look at leaderboards for a second. Like, it should actually be like a used world, a used area, right? So one of the things that I talked about, this is again literally 2 years ago, was being able to like buy just like decoration and stuff with guild fame to like decorate and customize your guild hall, literally like a house building thing. Well, maybe not house, but you know what I mean. You can literally customize the whole thing. I said that 2 years ago. I had a lot of the code written to make it work, and then I got sidetracked by other things that I had to get done. It didn't happen. And then like probably a few months later, I was like, okay, I actually have time. I'm going to work on this now. And then I think there's some stability issues. I didn't get to work on it. And then, okay, I'm ready. We're going to do it. And then we got a DMCA takedown request. It's now 2020. 2020 is almost over. It's been 2 years since I first said it, but I'm going to say it again. We're going to have the ability to buy static objects and decoration stuff and customize your guild hall. I said it 2 years ago, so that means maybe 2 more years, and maybe we'll actually have it, right? That's sort of the loose plan. There are a lot more details that, like Papa said, we don't have perfectly hammered out, and then some stuff we do have hammered out pretty well, but we don't want to share just yet. But the goal is definitely to have the guilds, or the function of guilds, be a bit more dynamic, right? Where, for example, like you said, you can get boosts that last temporarily, and you're encouraged to actually play actively with your friends.
Yep.
Cool. Other stuff, just random things. I think let's take care of the easy stuff first. Will the game still be free? Yes. Will RotF be on Steam? Maybe. Not sure yet. Steam takes like 30% of everything you make, which is kind of substantial, so not sure yet. Microtransactions, cosmetic content, keys, that sort of stuff. Marketing. I don't know if it's fair to call this marketing, but I think RotF did pretty well in the past simply by having content that was good enough that people that were making YouTube videos and stuff sort of helped us spread word about the game for us almost. So I think the plan right now is to double down on that and make sure that content creators on YouTube and other platforms have the tools and whatever it is, perms, stuff like that, to continue making like good videos, good content for us. I think patpot mentioned, well, actually no, he probably didn't say it in this stream, but I'm realizing that was in the dry run, so you didn't mention it. But patpot mentioned earlier to us about like a content creators like team where you can have like dedicated ranks for people that we know are making good content for us, stuff like that. Still hammering out the details, but should be good. And then here's the question that we can't hammer out that quickly. This one's like, I guess, requires a bit more time and delicacy, right? And that is, does your I'm going to read it out in full. Does your newly developed game differ enough from the original Realm of the Mad God? And I would be careful about using the word original because it's no longer accurate, but we'll get to it in a second. Is there any chance of being under a lawsuit in this new version, which most likely would be done by Deca Games, the current copyright owners of Realm of the Mad God? Let's talk about this. The reason I'm hesitant to use the word original is because at this point, it's not really about the original game, right? It's about the inspiration, right? If you were to compare Legacy RotF to Realm of the Mad God, yeah, it's the original, right? Now you're better off comparing the current RotF to Legacy RotF as the original, right? We have grand total of 0 assets that are unlicensed, right? We have licenses to all the sprites that we use. We have licenses to all the code that we use. We have licenses to all the music that we use, all the sound effects, right, etc. There are sprites that, you know, are made almost entirely in-house, and then there's a few that we purchased from packs online. And from a purely content basis, right? In terms of purely in terms of intellectual property, we have everything, right? That's all ours. The only thing that is, I don't want to say frightening, but I will say frustrating, is that I believe this exact situation was the case with another multiplayer bullet hell game called Trials of Titan, which you guys might know about. And that game got sent to DMCA by Deca, and I thought that was crazy. And I'm being candid. Like I read that and I was like, there's no way this sticks. This is insane. Trials of Titan used only their assets, only their code, and is nothing more than the same idea as Realm of the Mad God in terms of, a multiplayer bullet hell, right? So I thought that was crazy. I thought there was no way that DMCA sticks. The general copyright law is that you can copyright the expression of an idea, but you can't copyright an idea, right? So I thought that was crazy. And it turns out that it more or less was. The DMCA was lifted, I think, was it like 4 days after it was sent? Totally crazy. And I'm shocked that they would even try it. My suspicion is that what will happen when we release, even just for closed testing, but certainly for full release, is something similar. It would not surprise me if our hosting services immediately receive some sort of DMCA takedown request from Deca Games, but we know, what we have rights to, right? We know that we have licensed everything, right? So it's possible it's taken down for a day or two while we sort everything out with, whatever legal jibber jabber, but we'll be fine, which is pretty good. And then we've also retained an intellectual property lawyer whose guidance has, I would say, informed pretty much every decision that we've made regarding new content. So while I can say that I think this is going to be frustrating, I can't say that I'm particularly worried. Hopefully that answers some of that. Okay.
Nice.
Do we want to look at the meme questions at the bottom right, or just
in the bottom right? There was a lot of crying going on, so they will not be returning in the exact same form as. Craig was a terrible dungeon, to put it blankly.
No.
What do you mean that was the best dungeon in the game?
And Uvuvwevwevwe had some other issues. It caused some internal issues with people in chat. So we're going to be rebranding if we see him back. There is no reason.
Makeover. He will have extra makeup and lipstick. He will be gorgeous.
We're going to give him a makeover, but he won't be in for close testing.
True.
So Craig's Castle will not be seeing a return in its current form, at least.
To him, Craig has been killed, bro.
Yo, patpot killed him. You heard it here first.
He's been killed.
It was patpot.
I have murdered Craig.
True.
And there's nothing you can do about it. So, next slide.
So that pretty much sums up all the questions. Well, that's not. Those are all the questions that we're answering for today, right? That said, we know there were a lot more in the Reddit thread. We pulled the earliest questions if there were repeats, right? So if there were like 5 people asking more or less the same question, we pulled the earliest version of it and answered that question. So if you didn't hear your question answered, that's probably one of the reasons. And then another reason might just be we just don't have time or whatever. With that in mind, we're going to try to go back to the Reddit thread in the next few days or even weeks and answer everything that we can. So if you feel like your question was not at all, responded to here and no one else asked and nobody answered it properly, keep an eye on on the Reddit thread and your DMs or messages, notifications. We'll try to get to it. Is there anything else big before we hit the next button?
No.
I think that's everything.
Okay, I guess push next, yeah? Okay, sprint. So
Go.
we will be DMing some of the people on Reddit as well, who asked questions that we liked or thought were important, with keys in the coming days. And there are also 2 additional keys just sort of sprinkled throughout this presentation in sort of hidden locations. So
I have seen
access to that
people
VOD
find
will be kind of nice, but
I think both of the hidden keys have been claimed already. I've seen
have they
them.
both been claimed? I'll check it soon. That would be convenient because we failed to record the VOD apparently. It would give some people a bit of an advantage, so I'm glad to hear that they've both been claimed already.
Congratulations to Shad for claiming a key as well.
Okay, Shad, smurfing.
Now I don't need to give him one. That's fine.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
and then
Nyfot as well. Just saying.
Really?
Nyfot got one.
I'm actually impressed.
Oh,
Okay.
did he?
Well,
I
there
think
were
we
the
removed
2 hidden in the
Nyfots.
presentation, and there's 3 more right here. So I'm assuming they're all gone by now. But
Yeah.
And then we're going to DM some of the people on Reddit with keys who asked like important questions. I think that pretty much sums it up. How do we do, guys?
Pretty
It's pretty scuffed, but people like it.
But that was the goal, no? We had it in the title, right?
Yeah.
More scuffed.
Yo,
Right?
to answer questions.
We wanted the scuff. Yeah, so we can.
Yeah. So
if you have any questions in chat, put them in now.
We can go to the first slide again. It looks a lot better than this shit.
True.
Oh, the keys are claimed, you may as well.
Speed run a bit.
Q&A speed run.
Will there be a party system where you can reconnect? If yes, if you reconnect, will you spawn on the boss of the party? Portal system. Currently, the plan is that if the portal to the world still exists, you can join. If the portal doesn't exist, you can't. I think it's something we could investigate more, but that's what I've written so far. There's a lot of stuff that like we've done, but we haven't had a chance to put into a blog post or anything, just because there isn't anything to really like. There isn't anything cool to show about, right? A lot of stuff at 90%. For example, I finished writing the party system. I don't think we've made a blog post explaining that yet. But it's like, okay, I can do /p join, very cool. Like, it's not really worthy of a blog post, right? But the party system is returning, and it's already written. You want to take one, guys?
I'm looking. They're going pretty fast.
Improve.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really fast. What's happening with bans? Can we talk about that? Is that allowed?
They are getting removed.
Okay, yep. So if you've been banned from the Discord for there will be some cases, but you will be able to DM either me or another member of staff and be unbanned from the Discord, unless you are a prominent hacker or someone not desirable. I'm going to put it like that. You can get an unbanned.
Bans are all being lifted because we're doing a full TB wipe, right? It's a brand new game, so I mean, there's literally no accounts, right?
Yes.
We've got people that have registered already through the testing. I mean, there's no one, right? So all in-game bans are currently lifted. As for Discord stuff, we're trying to encourage the fresh slating, like we just said, but like, you know, it's all relative. I think Discord is a lot about just like the RotF community, and if we feel like you're toxic to the RotF community, like you're a toxic presence, then you know, whatever, maybe not. But in general, shoot us a DM and you can appeal if you're banned before. Are all the new dungeons getting unique music tracks? Eventually, yes. It's a slow process. Each track takes like, a few weeks, honestly, each, right? And then our composer has like several other projects they're working on concurrently. So it's a slow process. We certainly don't expect to have music for even like half of the content by the time closed testing comes around. But the answer is that yes, eventually each dungeon will have its own music.
Skilly, what are you saying, bro?
What is the entity seen in the Ace Games logo based on Mike's developments? Oh, Y is the entity. Okay.
Wait, did they say why? That's toxic. Wow. Okay.
Skilly, come on.
So we modeled the snail after Mike.
Bro.
That is a speedy snail. I don't know what you're talking about. He is zooming.
Skilly, I'm waiting for the animation system still, bro.
No, don't do him like that. Don't do him like that. Yeah, I finished the animation system, so come on. It worked out in the end. Do you think that RotF can surpass RotMG?
Sure.
Could it hit the market as the best roguelike to ever exist? I mean, I certainly think we can surpass Realm of the Mad God. I think that the multiplayer bullet hell genre is a relatively small space, which currently consists of Realm and potentially Trials of Titan once it comes out, potentially Deathlands, that kind of stuff, right? I think it's seeing a sudden, explosion of entries as people realize that things that they worked on as fan projects can turn into like proper standalone games. So I think, it's hard to say for sure, right? But it seems like the space will be becoming more competitive pretty quickly. And I've said this before, but I'll repeat it. I think that Realm of the Mad God is very much inhibited by its pet system. And I think that as long as they have that, it will be very challenging for them to compete with any other well-developed, well-thought-out multiplayer bullet hell. That's my opinion. So I think, it's hard to say for sure yet, but I think Trials of Titan will easily beat up Realm of the Mad God. I don't want to say easily, I shouldn't say easily, but I think most of these new games in the genre have learned a lot from what that game did wrong, and I think they're going to be stronger for it. It's my opinion. I don't know.
Way out of pocket for that one.
I mean, it's a hot take, right? I mean, like Realm has one huge benefit, which is that it has like grandfathered players, right? People that already have items and people that have already invested into their pets, right? Stuff like that. So, you know, it's not like they'll just instantly lose, but I do think that especially as time goes on, I think the player growth will be much higher in games that aren't like inhibited by a legacy system such as the pet system. That's my opinion.
Nice.
450 people, 3 keys. Well, no, there were 5 keys, and then we're also giving away keys to people to ask questions on the Q&A through the Reddit thing. So, hang in there. Are we planning any infinite dungeon where the longer players stay, the stronger enemies become? So basically, like Risk of Rain style. I don't know, guys. Are we?
Well, nothing's been
We
planned.
certainly haven't planned it yet, but
No.
we're not against it.
No.
I think Risk of Rain's pretty freaking fun.
Who do I do about Discord on that night? I'll just give him mine. So Skilly spam posting his Reddit question.
Yeah, we ignore
So we ignore Skilly and look for anyone else.
Will staff? Nah, come on. You can't do them like that. Will staff hosted events such as the Admin Arena on Old RotF remain? Or will it be a more automated approach? The interaction with staff and players during these events was quite cool, but I could see an automated system popping up here and there, or a mix. Yeah, I think it's cool to have like team interaction with the players. But I also think like the role of the team was sort of like misguided there. For example, like moderators are really meant to just make sure that the vibes are positive and make sure that people that are misbehaving are dealt with. Their role isn't necessarily to run events. So I think that was sort of a mistake on our part. I do think that it's good to have people on the team though actively interact with the community, actively playing though. So I don't think we have an answer, but certainly not for close testing because it's low prio.
Okay, Skilly says, "Can Miniguy repeat?"
I told you, we just ignore
no.
Skilly.
Yeah, you're kind of right. Go next.
Everyone seems to be spamming release date. I see Kebbles asking ROTF when. We see close testing.
Yo, Kebbles.
This year.
Hello, man.
Full release. Nope. No, you don't get to know that.
Yeah. Also, for a number of reasons, right? Partially, we just don't know, right? But closed testing is happening Q4 2020. That hasn't changed. That is still accurate as far as I know. As best we can tell, we should still be on track for that. And then full release, I think it'll depend, like we said earlier, on how close testing goes, right? How stable things are, whether the content feels playable, etc.
Mm-hmm. People are saying open general chat.
Yeah.
General chat will open when closed testing begins.
What?
We talked about this. Did you not know this?
No, I just didn't listen.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
I can't win, dude. What else we got?
Careless got some question marks in the chat.
How do we answer question marks?
How do you have question marks but no question? You're supposed to mark a question, but there is no question, just a mark.
Bro.
Oh, okay. When will the Reddit comment keys be handed out? I would say within the next like 2 or 3 days. Should be the weekend, basically.
I buy KeyPass account for $100.
You know my PayPal. I mean,
we are not selling keys.
true.
Will potions be gained by biome, or will we able to max a character in the first biome? Well, easy biomes aren't generally intended for stat maxing. I think we decided that would be more of a medium biome thing. The easy biome will be leveling up a bit, getting basic tiered gear. Maybe some white bags if you're lucky.
The idea of stat rolls has been removed. It's no longer a thing.
Yep.
So that also matters. So the leveling up process is now consistent. So that also maybe helps. So you are gaining stats by playing early game, right? But it's just through leveling up. And then once you're done with early game, then you start getting pots through the medium level dungeons.
Are you giving any more keys? Miniguy, are we
Yes.
giving any more keys?
Yes, through the Reddit Q&A, the Reddit thread. We're going to be giving people that ask questions.
After that, are we going to be giving
After
more
that,
keys?
yeah. So I think, I don't know if I remember if we mentioned it. The keys that we mentioned were going out to the premium players. That have been like very like active and supportive throughout the game's downtime. Should be out weekend-ish as well. So keep an eye on your DMs if you think you might be one of the people we're selecting. Can I simp for a closed testing key? Don't think so.
No, you cannot. Will support be
Yeah,
still
do you
in
want
the
to actually
game,
switch
or
to the
how
things
will
for
it work?
coming slide? Maybe. Do you want to switch to the things for coming slide? Maybe.
Support gets loot or no?
See, it was a meme
good
slide,
question,
but now it's
MRK.
useful.
Oh, it's right here.
Wait, no, it's a second. Yeah, something.
Can I 1v1 Mike RuneScape? Mike, do you accept this?
I don't play RuneScape.
Okay, so you're gonna lose.
I'll 1v1 your league though, right now.
Okay, Alice said if I don't get a key, I'm gonna be pissed. We'll prepare to be disappointed. No.
True.
Sorry.
I think we run for like 4 or 5 more minutes and then we bounce.
Yes.
Let's take like, final
Nah, I
few.
promised I will play Blue and Tower Defense, bro. I have to do it.
Well, maybe end the stream first that we have the VOD, yeah? But go ahead. Plan monetization scheme. We actually talked about it during the Q&A, but the plan is still to do cosmetic content and keys, more or less.
Bad can't do Q and N noob.
Yes.
That's true. I can't do it.
Was that on the Reddit thread or in the chat?
That was in the chat from Moist MRK.
I see. Miniguy Phasmophobia gameplay went? No, not a chance. I am not about those kinds of games. I'm so scared.
We have 4 people in voice. No, okay, Phasmophobia.
I am not touching that game with a 10-foot pole.
I don't
No.
recommend.
That
I don't
game
recommend
is
it.
easy, dude.
Exactly, it's so easy.
It's different. Okay, it's a psychological game. Okay, I'm not. I do not have the proper psychology to play it. Okay.
You just go into the house, you turn on your mic, start speaking.
What do you say?
You say his name.
You say the name.
Whose name?
The ghost.
No.
Yes.
You just talk to the ghost and then they come at you. See?
No.
Sniper B said, "Show us the game." Hey, we're doing that. It's just slowly.
True. And we showed some like a few in-game shots here, I think, right? We showed like the bag stuff. We showed some of the 3D objects in the fungal abode. So there you go. Why is Skilly calling us toxic? What? Okay.
Toxic staff actually all left already, so we got rid of Skilly, and that was a huge burden.
Yo, okay.
Yo. Okay.
As soon as Skilly was off,
Yo, that was.
Yeah, we dragged Skilly into a call and we said like,
like
yo,
we were
go.
held back so much by Skilly being there. Every time I posted something, he would just like why do we have this guy? And it was really demoralizing. But then
of course.
Skilly,
So toxic.
quote unquote, left on his own accord. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, what are you saying?
Well,
You do not need to feel the conspiracies. Come on.
No.
Will Galaxies be coming back? We talked about it earlier. Current plan is no, because we think that the smaller instance gameplay, with like what's happening in chat, the smaller instance gameplay with like just like a few of your friends will in some ways be covered by the new realm system, where you have some realms with smaller caps than others. And then the skills tree earning points are going to be moved into the leveling system. That's the current vibe, but I think it's open to change. We don't really know yet. Probably like another like 2 or 3 minutes. Any meme Easter eggs in RotF? Yeah.
Yep.
Will there be a more advanced party interface? I hope so. I finished writing all the whole party system stuff, like I said, like a few weeks ago. I just haven't been able to show it because right now it's literally just commands to make the party work. I think if we have a nice party UI at some point, then that will go into ace.gg. But it's not on the current list of to-do stuff because parties work if you just have commands. So we're not prioritizing it.
Someone asked if we're going to be selling items for money, and the answer is no.
Absolutely yes.
No, we will not be.
What?
officially.
Mike's like officially the answer is no, but go to my sketchy item shop at mikesitems.co.uk/RotF and find my items. Like, We'll make the real world trading .net. Yeah,
Skilly
we'll
said,
have it.
"Can we have a Mike class that has a smaller hitbox? So gnome class that has a smaller hitbox."
I was surprised you did not say a different name in there, but it's okay. He's gone.
I'm not toxic.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I do not think we will have a gnome class.
Okay, well, Shilu said it for us, so it's okay.
Patpot dissing Mike.
Will loot from closed testing be carried over into public release?
Do we know yet?
You said no last time I asked.
I think we're leaning towards no. I think the plan is to keep accounts, not force everyone to re-register, especially because people that are in closed test are probably going to get some like cool like skins and stuff to show they were closed testing. Got some cool swag, but I think the feeling right now is that characters and items will be wiped for full release after closed testing. I think that's certainly the expectation we should set up. Is there still a chance that RotF will come to mobile? Yeah, maybe. Like I said, like we certainly have more of an ability to do that now that we're away from Flash. Max character slot count? It's not currently capped actually. I mean, you start at 2, right? But yeah, I don't think we have a cap.
Skilly, shut up.
What is Skilly?
Do you plan on keeping Patpot on the team long term, or is this a short term?
I think it's a short term thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
like
whoa.
it's like a small fling, you know, just for
Yeah.
fun. I mean, yeah.
Okay, I see how it is.
Why are
Oh,
you
see,
laughing?
yeah,
Being
Kappa,
serious.
it's Kappa, it's Kappa.
No
come on.
Kappa, bro. He's getting out.
What are you saying?
He's out.
Full cap.
Make RotF a Clash of Clans clone.
Yes.
That's a good idea.
Yep.
And I think we
We
should.
will add that to the Trello board right now. It's next priority.
No, it's not the next priority. It's the main priority. Come on.
Will there be a little Miniguy pet?
No.
Yes.
What are you saying?
Whether or not Mini likes it or not. I will
How
sneak
do
it.
you even do that, right? My icon is like a circle. I mean, it's mostly circular, right?
Will skill tree still be a thing? Did you attend the Q&A?
The answer is yes. Check the
Yeah,
VOD
for
later.
sure.
We talked about it a lot. Okay. I think that's pretty much all we should have time for yet. I think it's probably time to bounce.
I think we do bounce. Mike, enjoy the balloons, I guess.
Oh fuck.
For sure. So everyone, just make sure you keep an if you ask a question in the Q&A thread, which a lot of people did, keep an eye on your DMs. There's a chance if we like your question, or especially if we use your question, that you might get a key. All right,
Yes.
that's all I got. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Make sure you check out the VOD. I think you can push the stop button.
Brooklyn
Peace.
has made you a Miniguy pet, just saying.
That's true.
In premium chat.
Adios, guys.
Oh, really?
Bye bye.
Peace.
See ya.